Welcome back. Well, perhaps the standout pledge from Rishi Sunak's speech was that maths will be compulsory for school children up to the age of 18.
But we're one of the few countries not to require our children to study some form of maths up to the age of 18. Right now, just half of all 16 to 19-year-olds study any maths at all. Yet in a world where data is everywhere and statistics underpin every job, letting our children out into that world without those skills is letting our children down.
Well, I wonder how you feel about that. Do you wish that you had attended more maths classes? Do you wish you'd studied maths until the age of 18 or even 19? As you just heard the Prime Minister say, he says this is a personal passion, a pet project of his. He's determined that all children will continue to learn maths as long as they stay in education. And I'm joined now to discuss this by the head of policy at the Centre for Education and Youth and former teacher, Baz Ramaiah. Hello, Baz. Thanks for joining me this afternoon. Welcome.
Thanks so much for having me, Vanessa.
So I mean, have no idea. I can't gauge what my lovely listeners and vibrant viewers will be thinking about this. I'm imagining that some of them will think this is a really terrific idea. They'll think that they were taught maths for too short a period of time, that they never really grasped it, that if they had, you know, all manner of different careers and life opportunities and understanding would have been open to them, they really wish they'd had a chance. And then there'll be others, and I might as well declare my hand at this point, like me, and I'm not proud of it, but it is the truth, who just didn't get maths at all after the age of about 12 when it got a bit difficult. I just never grasped a single word of it, and I feel as if I could have been shoved into maths lessons to this very day and still never understood a single word. I think it would have been a waste of time, resources, the teachers would have been frustrated, and I'd have learned nothing at all. I'm not proud of it, but it is the truth. I wonder whether you think that Rishi Sunak is misguided in saying that it's absolutely imperative that everyone learns maths until they're 18 or 19.
I think it's certainly a strange topic to focus on at the moment, given the myriad crises that are facing the country, and indeed the myriad crises that are facing the education system when we think about issues with teacher pay, issues of recruitment and retention, issues of high pupil absences. It is certainly a strange thing to focus on. I think Rishi Sunak is right in the sense that we do have a problem in this country in relation to many adults in this country having a lower level of numeracy than we would like, and that inhibiting the economy in lots of important respects. But I don't necessarily think the solution to that problem is to have this compulsory maths until the age of 18. From our research at the Centre for Education and Youth, I think if we want to improve adult numeracy, if we want to improve numeracy for young people leaving school, we should actually be looking at much earlier on in their schooling career, particularly at primary school, and investing there if we want to solve this problem.
Okay, so where does it arise, this idea that numeracy is the thing that's most lacking and most urgent to deal with? Are there not other areas, particularly in terms of technology, for example, coding, for example, other subjects that really are sort of glaring chasms where we ought to be educated, and maths not necessarily at the top of the list? I think lots of people were very surprised by his particular choice of maths as the thing most lacking and most urgent.
Yeah, it's certainly strange in that respect, Vanessa, because actually, as Rishi Sunak himself pointed out in his speech, maths is the most popular A level in the country. 50% of young people study maths already up to the age of 18. And that's in stark contrast to many other subjects. And Rishi Sunak has framed this about meeting the demand for skills in the economy. But what's really interesting, if you look at the Confederation of Business and Industries annual survey that they do of employers to find out what are the skills gaps that they're experiencing with young people entering the workplace, numeracy does feature in there, but actually what they comment on much more than that is young people entering the workplace without skills in communication,
yes,
problem solving, foreign languages. And actually one of the things that comes up most is work experience. So I completely appreciate the interest in wanting to plug this skills gap and seeing schools as being one of the main routes to doing that. But actually what the data suggests from industry itself is that the government could be better off investing in young people's access to creative arts to make sure they're learning those key communication skills, or creating structured mandatory programs for work experience to make sure young people, particularly those who are from disadvantaged backgrounds who struggle to access access work experience are getting those opportunities. And through those sorts of routes, you're actually going to be producing the skills that employers say that they need.
And very often you hear from parents and from employers that what they really feel that young people are lacking are sort of life skills, like, for example, and I could choose many, but for example, budgeting, economics when it applies to real life, practical life, running a home, running a house, even running a small business. How do you budget? How do you, for example, investments, shares, how does the stock market work? Learning to make your money grow for you if you can, learning to make your money work for you. And it's not only that, but things like parenting, personal relationships. What does it mean to be a father? What does it mean to be a mother? What does it mean to be in a loving relationship? Why should you want to be in a loving relationship? What is domestic abuse? How do you have a harmonious, home and family? All those kinds of practical things that people are forever saying teachers ought to focus on. And then teachers are saying, for God's sake, we're absolutely inundated. How on earth are we supposed to clean up people's teeth and teach them about contraception and teach them about how to do, budgeting and also cooking? We can't do everything. But maths is the kind of most desirable, absolutely kind of, aspirational subject. As you already say, more than half people's already taking the A-level. I wonder where he got this from. Have you been aware of maths as a personal pet passion of the Prime Minister's forever? Is that what this is about?
He certainly spoke not that long ago about his interest in developing what's called like a British baccalaureate, which is a bit of a misnomer because it would have to be an English baccalaureate because of how devolved the education system is in the UK. And as part of that, he was already talking about an interest in maths being something that was compulsory and carried on until 18. But the idea that England grapples with a excessively innumerate adult population has been in circulation for a very long time. There's been estimates done by organisations like National Numeracy to show the impact that it has on the economy. I think estimates sometimes ranging us up to as high as 20 billion in lost potential economic output in any given year. And there is survey data showing that adults do report struggling with maths in a way that affects their own personal career ambitions, but also their ability to engage in daily tasks. So I know, for example, from some research, again by National Numeracy, that 10% of adults report struggling with doing calculations that involve like weights and measures. 10%, in fact, actually 11%, struggle with interpreting statistics in the press. And so there's always been this sense that there are deficiencies there in terms of the adult skills of the adult population. But again, I don't think this is either pressing, and I certainly don't think it necessitates the policy that the Prime Minister has laid out, as opposed to an alternative policy, which involves high quality early intervention earlier on in young people's schooling career.
I'd also like to ask you about the facilities for making what the Prime Minister has pledged a reality. So, for example, do we have the staff available to teach maths at that level? Do we have, the classrooms? Do we have everything that we need to facilitate that? Or is this what some of my listeners have been suggesting, some of my viewers, yet another kind of pie in the sky promise that will be impossible to effect?
I think it's absolutely correct that the brute logistics of how schools work is what's always going to be a big constraint on any of these big policy ideas. And it is just a fundamental fact that this government has struggled with recruiting enough teachers for a very long time, including maths teachers. For the last decade, the government has systematically failed to meet its targets for recruiting new teachers into the profession each year for maths, falling short of their target by 10% this year. So there's an issue of recruitment, and there's also an issue of retention as well. So based on recent data, we can expect that within 2 years of joining the profession, a fifth of new teachers will leave the profession, and within 5 years, 40% of them will leave the profession. So we have these enormous issues of recruitment and retention that mean that we just simply don't have enough maths teachers in the classroom to be able to deliver an ambitious policy like this, which involves a lot more young people studying maths for a longer period of time.
All right. Let me just say one thing, because I did Latin and not maths. I don't know whether it's done me a fat lot of good or not. So I'll say nil desperandum, which means do not despair, because we're going to bring in Baz, a very interesting personality, somebody who's doing exceptionally well in life, despite struggling very badly with maths. And that is Global Brand Ambassador Manager at the Gel Bottle, Jodie Cruttenden. Jodie, hello. So glad to have you on the programme. I hear maths wasn't your favourite subject at school.
No, I was really bad at maths, can't even lie. But thankfully, I've actually never needed it in any of my roles. So that's always a winner. But yeah, I feel like when I was at school, I really did try with maths, but I just failed my GCSEs multiple times. And then when I was at college, I also failed there. So I did give it a really good go, but unfortunately it wasn't for me, which I think is okay. Like, not every person's skill set is, you know, mathematical skill set. So I'm not too sure why, you know, what's come out today is that they think they should extend it to like the age of 18. I think you should kind of let young people take accountability for like what their passions and interests are without forcing them to study like aspects they may not enjoy or be skilled at.
So Judy, explain what you do for a living, because I know you're very successful at it. What is it, and how have you managed to do it without maths being any kind of feature in what you do?
So I feel like I'm quite a people person. So I feel like in all the roles I've ever had, my first role was actually being like a sales executive. So that enabled me to kind of gain the confidence in talking to multiple people, which is why I never stopped talking. So, and then my current role, I'm obviously in the marketing industry now. So again, it's kind of being like creative and analytical. I mean, I do use things like budgets, etc., but we are, you know, in 2023 now, we have things like Excel, we have Google. I would be lying if I didn't Google, you know, percentage questions, but it is there. And I feel like the mathematical bits and bobs that I learned back in the day, like I never ever use them. I do feel like perhaps we should be, you know, children should be educated on things like tax or, you know, mortgages, things like that. Useful skills that actually are transferable into like adult life, instead of extending it to the age of 18.
Well, I appreciate you joining us, Jodie. Thank you very much indeed. Continue good luck in your career. Baz, fascinating. Hope we'll talk again on the show. Thank you very much indeed.